Hi, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about the role of zones in intermediate or interfirm, I should say, interfirm transactions. Now, this is a very interesting topic for more than one reason. Just to give some statistics here, um, the 80% of global trade is interfirm, right? 80%. And we're going to discuss some implications for economies in general, but also zones in particular when it comes to how they target and who they pursue in terms of investors to come into their country, come into their zone. When you think about that, 80% of transactions that are happening is interfirm. It's between the same company, maybe subsidiary and parent company, but it's the same company on a global basis. On top of that, 52% of trade is intermediate goods. That is goods that are being used to go into another stage of production or as part of a production process. It's not final goods. So if you have you're manufacturing cars, somebody's doing the spark plug. For that person, it's a final good, but for the car manufacturer, it's simply input into their production. And that's just a basic example. Now, another statistic is 20% of global trade, goods trade that is. I'm sure if you looked at it from inclusive of services, it would go up considerably more. So 20% of goods trade, over 20% of goods trade goes through zones. So when you think of all of that, there's some investment implications. There are from both the government side and private sector side. There are policy implications for the government in terms of how it what it implements and then how it rolls that out. Now we're going to explore that. So before we go any further, I always do this. Zones. What exactly are zones? It doesn't matter what you call them. Free zones, free trade zones, enterprise zones, foreign trade zones, all the same thing. It's a specific geographic area where certain specific rules apply. Typically, there's some level of incentivization for investments to happen. That sort of incentivization varies across jurisdictions. Some are very generous or very intricate. Others may not be so intricate or generous. But the typical one fiscal incentive that tends to be just about universal is customs duty waiver, as long as the goods remain in the zone. Right? Just as an example. Now, when we're looking at this and recognizing that 50 or 80% of trade is between firms. This, of course, brings up transfer pricing and how that is done. And of course, companies are going to be using the area where which typically is a zone. They pay lower taxes, right? They're going to be using it in different ways. Sometimes they'll transfer, say, intellectual property to that jurisdiction. So the parent company is no longer the owner, the subsidiary. And of course, the parent company has to pay royalty fees, etc., or management fees to the subsidiary in order to aid it in lowering its overall taxes. Now, the OECD and G7 countries have come out with the inclusive framework on base erosion and profit shifting, which is what this is about. And there is now a treaty, which basically all countries belong to, except for a few, that will set the minimum corporate income tax at 15%. And corporate income taxes tend to be one of the incentives, fiscal incentives that are used in zones, right? Now, the inclusive framework there are a lot of intricacies involved in it. So, for example, one of which is that um, firms or countries don't necessarily have to implement the 15%. But what it does, it allows the home country, the original country from which the investment came, to do a top up. So say, for example, their corporate income tax rate is at 10% in a zone or otherwise. It's 10%. So they pay 10% on their corporate for their corporate income tax. The global minimum being 15 allows the home country, the original country from which investment came or investor came, to top up by 5% to make up the deficit, because the maximum is 15. So even if the home country has, say, a 20% rate, it can't top up to 20. It can only top up to the 15. So it will charge that top up. That then has great implications for that 80% of transactions that are happening. It also means that, in terms of who you attract, if you are attracting companies that are focused on, B2C, business to consumer, and that's their market, you're is in essence chasing the 20% of trade, not the 80%, right? So, we have to be keen on looking at that. Um, so, policies and laws, regulations have to be shaped in order to facilitate that, whether it's attraction and then facilitating the actual transactions that take place. But I just wanted to point that out in today's episode, because it is something that, a lot of countries have to be aware of, and look at, and also companies have to be aware of what exactly is the focus of the country that's attracting you, because you may want to do something and it doesn't quite fit because the policies that are in place don't are not focused on that inter-firm transaction that you want to do. It's more focused on that 20%, which is the more B2C transactions. So if you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to see me do a specific topic, just leave me a comment down below and I'll get right back to you.